They don't have a monopoly on stupid. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define person who menstruates. You're the teachers union education party and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Oh, right, and then re-elected him. Maybe you missed it because it wasn't on TikTok. And sexism? Hillary got 3 million more votes than Trump, which in a normal country would be called a victory. It wasn't 21st century sexism that prevented a woman from being president. It was the Electoral College.
Already waving the white flag ahead of the midterm elections. Too spineless to own their failures, they're preemptively handing Trump the blame for a loss they haven't even suffered yet. But Maher isn't buying it, and he's calling the DNC out for their cowardly, excuse-riddled playbook. He believes a comeback is absolutely within reach, but only after they torch their deadweight leadership to the ground. Maher's critique was razor-sharp and ruthless, so smash that subscribe button and let's tear it.
Run for office as if the voters don't live here. As if they don't go to the grocery store and Starbucks and the office. But they do. They live here. And they actually see women and people of color. And it doesn't look like some patriarchal racist nightmare. Do problems remain pertaining to racism and sexism? Of course. But a poll last year asked, if America is the greatest country in the world, more blacks and Hispanic Americans agreed with that than the white progressives. It asked if racism is built into our society. White progressives agreed with that at higher levels than black and Hispanic people. It asked if government should increase border security. Same result. Hispanic Americans are less okay with illegal immigration.
This is the Democrats' most fatal flaw. Breathtaking arrogance dressed up as compassion. They don't listen to their own voters. They don't consult them. They simply assume they know better, diagnose the problem from their ivory towers, and charge ahead with radical solutions nobody asked for. Maher highlights this perfectly with one of the most explosive issues in American politics, immigration. Black and Hispanic communities, two groups the Democrats have long taken for granted, have been crystal clear about their opposition to open borders. They've voiced their concerns loudly, consistently, and passionately. And the Democrats, they covered their ears and looked the other way. The results were catastrophic. When Kamala Harris was handed the border crisis to manage, she didn't just drop the ball, she abandoned it entirely. Over 12 million illegal border crossings were recorded on her watch. 12 million. That isn't compassion. That isn't policy. That is a dereliction of duty on a historic scale.
Harris's new memoir of the 24 election is called 107 Days, but it should have been called Everyone Sucks But Me. 107 days is a victim's title because, get it, she only had 107 days to win. Yeah, and $1.5 billion and a built-in army of about 75 million people who'd vote for any human-adjacent life form that wasn't Trump.
Democrats' most recycled and tired excuses is that Kamala Harris simply didn't have enough time to campaign, and Kamala herself has been more than happy to echo that convenient narrative. But let's demolish that excuse with cold, hard facts. Kamala Harris entered that race wielding the largest campaign war chest in electoral history, a staggering financial arsenal that dwarfed every other candidate on the battlefield. And the money was just the beginning. She had Hollywood locked down. A-list celebrities, cultural icons, and the most influential entertainers on the planet were lining up to champion her cause. The star power alone was utterly unprecedented. Yet despite every conceivable advantage, the money, the fame, the institutional support, she still lost decisively. Now, heading into the midterms, certain Democrats are dusting off those same threadbare excuses and trotting them back out. But Maher isn't having it. The excuses were hollow then. They're hollow now, and voters aren't fooled anymore.
107 days, nothing is ever Kamala's fault. Biden lets her down by not stepping down sooner. Pouty face emoji. Gavin Newsom, he was asked for his endorsement, but texted, hiking, we'll call back. But then never did. And then he didn't even ask her to prom. America itself lets Kamala down by not being ready for the running mate she really wanted, Pete Buttigieg. So she's stuck with the Home Depot paint salesman. And the rest is herstory. Poor Kamala. We made her the star of a rom-com and didn't even give her a gay bed.
Excuses just keep coming. Now the Democrats are floating the narrative that America simply isn't ready for a gay vice president. Another conveniently crafted deflection cooked up entirely inside the DNC's bubble. But here's the brutal truth. Every day, Americans weren't sitting around their kitchen tables agonizing over anybody's gender or sexuality. They were drowning. They were suffocating under an economy that was actively crushing them from every direction. Gas prices were bleeding families dry at every fill-up. The housing market had become a cruel, unattainable fantasy for millions of hardworking Americans. The border was an absolute freefall. The education system was unrecognizable, shaped by ideological agendas that left children academically behind and parents furious. And on the global stage, America's reputation and commanding presence had been reduced to an embarrassing shadow of its former self. That was the real election battlefield, and the Democrats failed spectacularly on every single...
I have bad news for you. They don't have a monopoly on stupid. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define person who menstruates. You're the teachers' union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person.
Pulls no punches as he drags the Democrats back to the scene of the crime, the catastrophic 2024 election loss. The verdict: many voters believed progressive politics had gone too far. They saw problems in education, immigration policy, and cultural debates, and they punished Democrats at the ballot box. Ordinary, hardworking Americans watched in disbelief as their institutions crumbled under radical ideological experiments, and they responded the only way they could. They voted the Democrats out. It was a political rescue mission, and the message couldn't have been louder or clearer. But here's the gut punch. The Democrats still don't get it. Not even close. Rather than soul-searching or course-correcting, they're doubling down, clinging desperately to the very woke ideology that drove millions of voters straight into Trump's corner. No accountability, no reflection, no lessons learned, just the same tired, radical agenda dressed up in fresh talking points. Maher is absolutely disgusted, and honestly, so are we.
Speak truth to power, and we always should, but you have completely lost the ability to speak truth to bullshit. The Democratic polling firm Blueprint told Democrats months ago that black voters, aka their supposedly liberal base, were more likely to find the president too liberal than too conservative. They also found that voters didn't just want Harris to distance herself from Biden, they wanted her to distance herself from what they believe the entire Democratic Party has become, a Portlandia.
Deepest frustration isn't even with the radical left. It's with the cowards standing right beside them. There are plenty of Democrats who see the rot festering inside their own party. They know the woke agenda is toxic. They know it's alienating millions of voters. They know it's slowly strangling the life out of a once powerful political force. But instead of speaking up, they stay silent, heads buried, hoping someone else will sound the alarm. They'll spend all day gleefully shredding Trump on every platform available, but dare to whisper a single word against the woke circus consuming their own party? Absolutely not. That silence isn't neutrality, it's cowardice, and it carries a devastating price. The DNC, once a towering, formidable political giant that commanded respect and won elections, has been reduced to a punchline, a cautionary tale. And according to Maher, the silence of the reasonable is exactly what handed the radicals the key.
What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Oh, right, and then re-elected him. Maybe you missed it because it wasn't on TikTok. And sexism, Hillary got 3 million more votes than Trump, which in a normal country would be called a victory. It wasn't 21st century sexism that prevented a woman from being president. It was the Electoral College.
Democrats have a brand new excuse fresh off the assembly line. America is a nation of sexists and racists. Why? Because voters had the audacity to reject Kamala Harris. The DNC is already weaponizing this narrative, preloading it as their convenient explanation should the midterms go sideways. But Maher dismantles this shameless deflection with one devastating counter-argument. Barack Obama. Americans didn't just elect Obama. They embraced him, celebrated him, and handed him a second term with enthusiasm. Why? Because he showed up with rock-solid principles, a compelling vision, and a message that actually resonated with everyday Americans across racial and political lines. Kamala Harris had none of that. No clear message, no defining principles, no compelling vision, just hollow talking points and an unbearable word salad that left voters cold and uninspired. America didn't reject Kamala because of who she was. They rejected her because of what she lacked. Maher knows it. Everyone knows.
Kamala spent 100 days telling voters, I know it feels like crime and illegal immigration are bad, but fuck your feelings. Look at this chart. Yes, there's a lot to not like already about the new regime, but maybe take 1 week to ask what you did wrong. The basis for Democratic campaigns has become, we're the smart people. That we know from the get-go. No need to look into that. We know that
elitism, the poisonous arrogance rotting the Democratic Party from the inside out. The DNC has appointed itself the smartest people in every room they walk into, and they expect everyone else to simply bow, comply, and be grateful. They've constructed this elaborate self-image of intellectual superiority that is completely disconnected from the real world most Americans actually live in. And because they're convinced they're the brightest minds in the building, they've developed a dangerous habit, pretending to understand the struggles of ordinary people better than ordinary people understand themselves. A struggling single mother doesn't know her own problems. A working class father doesn't understand his own frustrations. But the DNC, they have all the answers, so they manufacture solutions. Polished, ideologically driven, utterly disconnected solutions that fix absolutely nothing. They don't solve the problem. They redefine it, rebrand it, and congratulate themselves for their brilliance, while real Americans continue suffering. Maher sees it clearly, and voters are finally seeing it.
Ladies, I know this isn't fair, but we're all always running against the worst cliche of who people think we are. Women Democrats can't look oversensitive or preachy or unable to laugh at themselves. They also can't look silly, like Gretchen Whitmer did, trying to hide in the Oval Office. They have to look brave and strong. It wasn't a good look for the woman party that all the guys were speaking out for Jimmy Kimmel when Trump went after him, except on the woman's show, where for 5 days the outspoken hosts were suddenly as quiet as a geisha.
Zeroes in on one of the Democratic Party's most glaring and uncomfortable contradictions. Here is a party that has built its entire brand around championing women's rights, elevating female voices, and demanding bold representation, yet many of its own leaders are anything but bold. The irony is staggering. For a party that thunders about female empowerment from every podium and platform, many of their most visible leaders seem unwilling to challenge the party line when it matters most. When hard truths need saying and real courage needs displaying. But here's where it gets even more painful. The few high-profile figures who do speak loudly and fearlessly, like AOC, often become associated with controversial comments, progressive overreach, and positions so extreme they send moderate voters sprinting in the opposite direction. And then there was Kamala, the supposed crown jewel of female Democratic leadership, delivering mind-numbing word salads that left audiences genuinely confused and completely uninspired. Bold in title, empty in substance. The contradiction couldn't be more.
And on the 5th day, they rose and said, no one silences us. No one had to. You silenced yourself. Whoopi Goldberg continued, did you all really think we weren't going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel? No, I thought you would, but then you didn't. 5 days? Talk about needing extra time to get ready.
Democratic Party stands at a crossroads, and the clock is ticking loudly. Maher has laid it all bare with brutal, unflinching honesty. The excuses, the arrogance, the cowardice, the disconnection from ordinary Americans. It's all been exposed under a blinding spotlight. This is a party that once commanded genuine respect, inspired millions, and shaped the direction of an entire nation. But today, they're drowning in ideological quicksand, too proud and too stubborn to grab the lifeline being thrown at them by their own voters. The midterms are approaching fast, and the warning signs are absolutely everywhere. Real change demands real accountability, gutting failed leadership, silencing the radical fringe, and actually listening to the Americans they claim to represent. Maher believes the comeback is possible, but only if the Democrats are willing to face the mirror without flinching. The question is devastatingly simple. Are they brave enough? And on that note, we draw the curtains on today's video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.